Hi everybody and welcome to another card tutorial. I'm Merrick, independent Stampin' Up demonstrator in Southeast Queensland. Today we are going to be using a lovely combination of colours. It's Coastal Cabana, Fresh Freesia and Bermuda Bay, as well as our basic white. I am using the artistically inked bundle, which has the matching dies and stamp sets to go with it. I have cut already the leafy die out of it, and I will be using the thanks sentiment as well as the longer blot and the rosette from the stamp set. I have just cut my the Bermuda Bay cardstock and scored it in half for a standard size card. I have cut a piece of basic white cardstock as well, which will be layered on the front of the card and just gives a small border. It's about 1/2 centimetre difference in the card so that it has that nice little border around it and finishes it off nicely. Today I'm going to be using some basic stamping on this card. It's going to all be orientated towards the bottom right hand side of the card and kind of a collection of the images overlapping each other, very similar to the designer series paper that went with this set. I'm using the Coastal Cabana for the longer ink blot. And you'll see I'm going to stamp this 3 times. I ink my stamps up fairly well and always turn them over to check to make sure that they're inked correctly. The lovely thing about these types of stamps is that if there is a little bit of an imperfection in your image, it's really not going to matter because it's not something that is a sentiment or an image that has to have clear outside boundaries. So you can see I'm going to turn it over so it gives sort of a mirrored type of effect, but offset as well. And then my third stamp is actually only going to use one end of the image, and it's going to allow me to add a little bit of extra on the bottom section. And then I'm going to come in very shortly and use the Fresh Freesia with the rosette image. These images are lovely. They give that alcohol ink effect without having to play with alcohol inks and solvents and all sorts of bits and pieces to get the same sort of effect. So the rosette, again, is one of those images that if you do have a little imperfection, it's really not going to stand out. The Fresh Freesia is a part of our new in colour range. It's a really pretty purple, and I'm not really a fan of purple. However, it's really nice. You can see I'm going to actually add 3 of these in the negative spaces on the page, making sure that sometimes my images do go off the page or off your section, and that's just to give it a really nice flow to your image. So this is really simple. I'm now going to layer on the cut leaf die, and I'm going to use the multi-glue, which is a white fast drying glue. I tried to put it on these type of really detailed images or die cuts I should say, in little dots so that each section has some kind of adhesive on it that when I press it down onto my project that it's going to stay without having to cover the entire back, which would take a very long time. And you'll see I just pop this straight over the top so it layers over the top of some of those images, and then I put my hand on top just for a second, and that ensures that the white glue does sort of squish a little bit underneath the die cut and adheres a lot better. This stuff is really sticky if you get it on your hands, so you'll need to go and wash your hands probably afterwards if you have put too much glue on. As a scrapbooker, I never really used a lot of glue, so coming into Stampin' Up for the second time in my life, I've noticed a real shift towards using glue, and I do understand. It gives you a little bit of wiggle room, it adheres extremely well, and it's very fast drying. Compared to what we used to have, this quality stuff is really good to use. So you can see I'm now going to come in, and I have used a label die from a different die set. It's the succulent die set that is available still in the catalogue. And I've used this beautiful little die here, and it's going to house our sentiment. And it was almost like it was made for this sentiment. It fits perfectly and looks really pretty on a card, popped up with some dimensional dots, which you'll see me do in a minute. I do have the thanks sentiment, and I'm going to use the Momento Black, which is one of the inks that we do use. Is a harder ink pad, so you do have to tap it quite a fair bit, and I store mine upside down to ensure that the ink is on the surface of the ink pad at all times, and you kind of get a little bit of extra mileage out of your ink that way. I give it a good press, as I do with most of my stamps, to make sure that I do get a clean, crisp image. I don't tend to use a stamp apparatus or something like that where I can go back in. So I do try to make sure I get it first go. Sometimes it doesn't work out that way, but that's okay. A tip for your Momento Black is to keep your lid on it as soon as you quickly can, because it does dry out very quickly. I use plenty of dimensional dots to pop up my image, or my label for my sentiment in this case. And I end up with these little white pieces of paper that you peel off everywhere all over my craft room. But I think that's just the way that it goes. When you're a crafter, you tend to have bits of mess everywhere, and the vacuum has to come out often. I'm going to pop this over the top and the bottom right hand section, and that gives us our card. It was really simple and really quick. I'm going to give this one a go in a couple of different colorways and post it over on my blog. Thanks very much for joining me, and as always, happy stamping!